to NeUp's Founder Focus, where we today have Sonica with us, who has started Marchingsheep. And this is a very interesting venture which has a story to tell when it comes to the HR dynamics in India. And something that is very relevant today is diversity and inclusion. A woman's world is something that is utopian. It's a man's world that we are in today, and a female entrepreneur is with us, so which makes the journey and the interview a little special. Thank you so much, Sonica, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Gauri. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Great. So I first want to ask you about your experience and how you understood that okay, you have an entrepreneur within you, and you want to start Marchingsheep. A little bit of the story there, like how the name came about, and like just want to kind of please take us back into the years and let us live the story that you lived through your eyes.
So honestly, I never ever thought that I would be an entrepreneur because I always considered myself to be a very, very risk averse person. So I am the third child of two doctors who always believed that you should have security, a stable job. So that's how you believe your career should be. So after completing my I also joined the corporate sector, and I never thought that I will, start on my own. So I worked for big companies, and by 2012, I was heading HR for an organization. And that is when a couple of things happened. I went for an interview, and I asked the question saying that, what next? The question promptly came that you will not have a growth trajectory in India, and you will have to go abroad because that is where we will have options, etc. And I was like, all right, let's see. I did not take up that role. I ended up taking another role. But so it was niggling at my mind. And I also saw that, most of the roles that people at my level were getting were very similar. There was no difference. The industry might change, size of the organization might change, but the challenges were pretty much the same. So having said that, throughout my corporate journey, I got married, I had a child. I never took a break. I was one of those privileged women who had all the support from the family and from the managers which I worked with. So I never took a break, but even then there were these little microaggressions that one saw. And there was when I started my career way back in 2001, Gauri, nobody was talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It was never a part of an HR strategy. Forget about being a part of business strategy. There was no POSH. There was Vishakha guidelines, but even the best of organizations were not doing sensitization about Vishakha guidelines. I never heard of Vishakha guidelines, still POSH happened, right? So I felt that, at that time that there was a big gap in um, the diversity, equity, and inclusion space from the pure intent and application perspective. So I took a break for a year, and during that time, I took up some freelancing assignments as with a consultant. So in the back end, just to get an idea of the lay of the land, the kind of assignments, projects, etc. And I really enjoyed myself because the kind of blank canvas, the creativity, the freedom to put across multiple ideas. It just gave me a lot of excitement every day, saying, that I can propose. I don't have to follow what my boss says or what my CEO says. So that is how it started. And in 2013, I said, okay, I will do something on my own. And that is when somebody asked me, they said that, there is an HR consultant almost in every third lane. What is it that you will do that will be different? And I said that, if there is something which I have learned in all these years of my experience, is that when you do things with the right intent and the right process, you can make sheep march. So that name, we lovingly started calling it Marching Sheep. Marching Sheep की website बनानी है. Hindi is okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So Marching Sheep की website बनानी है, Marching Sheep का deck बनाना है. So next thing we knew, we said it's a cute name, it's a nice name. And if you even talk about it, even now when we talk about it, a lot of people say that we just can't forget the name. We can't forget the logo, we can't forget the name. So we like, I anyways did not want anything very cliche, people or HR in the name. So I said, okay, let's continue with this. And that is how the journey started. And it's been 11 years now, and I have to say that there has never been a dull moment. So yeah, so that's been my daughter grew up with Marching Sheep. My daughter was 3 months old when Marching Sheep was born. So I sometimes say that Marching Sheep is my third child. So
In fact, I feel startups are the first kids. I mean, if you have a pet, that's your first child, and then if you have a startup, that's your second child, and then your child is your child. So I teach in a school, and I always tell all the people that I meet that I have 900 kids, and then my kid will be like the 901th kid or 902th kid, because then it's like that's the kind of motherly affection that we see in women. I've never heard a man say that this company is my baby. Like, okay, I'm not stereotyping anybody, but yes, the kind of affection that women bring to the workplace is something very contagious. Now, I want to ask you, I mean, how has Marching Sheep really differentiated things? Because number one is, when you were recalling your journey, I could only figure out that an HR person can see themselves as a COO, and you tip the jump of a CEO, but that jump comes with a price. Like, whenever you start a company, you've got to invest, you've got to like give money to talent. Here, if you were probably like the HR head of the biggest conglomerate out there, maybe the TCSs and the Reliance and the Adanis of the world, you would have been receiving a fat paycheck every month. But when you start, you would agree with me that you will have to pump in that money. So I mean, was it your own savings, was it your family, was it investors? I mean, how did that journey begin? Because I have personally felt this. I am all of 25, and whenever I think of an entrepreneurial idea, there is always a backlash. Maybe my partner, maybe a friend, and they'll be like, but you should think about this. But I never think. I first do, and then I think about it. So I want to ask about your experience here.
So, firstly, it goes without saying that when you leave your job and the first month that the salary doesn't hit the account, it hurts. Okay, it goes without saying. Okay. But having said that, see, the kind of work that we do at Marching Sheep as a knowledge partner, as a consultant, I did not need a huge investment. So I have no machinery, I have no infrastructure, nothing. So to start with, it was I was not investing in anything. I first had to acquire clients and then see what is the quantum of work and then acquire the right talent accordingly. So yes, there was an outflow in terms of, getting the right talent and then, managing the cash flow. That definitely was there. But then I had my savings. So that kind of I managed. Was I able to make the same that I was making as a head of HR of a 600 crore company? It took 2, 3 years to reach that level. But honestly, the happiness of doing something on your own kind of beats the this thing. It might not be, see, it is very easy for me to say this because I was not putting bread on the table, right? I did not have any liabilities, I did not have any responsibilities. So it is easy for me to say this, but for somebody who has responsibilities, to be able to sustain for 2, 3 years, it might not be such an easy decision. So a lot of people who come to me and say that, we want to take the plunge, I want to become an entrepreneur. I always say that, if you're in a relationship, if you have a partner, one of you needs to be in a stable job so that the other one is able to do this. Secondly, do not jeopardize your family's savings in future. So you need to have a kitty set aside saying that this is the amount and be frugal about it. So I was very frugal about it. So I made my own website. It was a horrible website, but I made my own website. I did everything on my own and I had no idea, Gauri. So for example, somebody said that you need to decide whether you want to be a proprietorship, you want to be an LLP, you want to be an LLC, you want to be a company. And I said, what is all this? Then they said, okay, then you need to have a service tax registration, you need to have XY. At that time it was service tax, not GST. So you need to do all of this. And then I was very clear that I will not, in the consulting world, typically what happens is that when you go for business development, somebody senior will go as a partner, make the pitch, get the client. But in the back end, who's actually delivering is somebody who's an analyst, a junior, somebody who's right out of college. But the kind of work that, or the portfolio that we had, I was very clear that I need people who have on ground HR experience. So today, when you look at the team that Marchingsheep has, these are people with 10, 12 years of experience across industries. And then they are, fulfilling their desire to be a facilitator or a consultant or an OD specialist. So for me to be able to afford them, because they are already earning that much and they will not come simply because for the love of, you know so it was very important that I reach that level where I'm able to generate that revenue and then maintain that kind of a team. So it took time and it took a lot of iterations on working with clients, our offerings. From the very beginning, I was very sure that we will not have off the shelf canned programs, which I pick up from here and I will give it to company A, company B, company C, and scale it up. Because I've always believed that every company is different. Within one company, function A, function B, geography A, geography B will be different. So you have to iterate your delivery. You have to keep your people at the center. So everything that we do is differentiated. When I speak to a client, I don't speak to a client like they're a client. I speak to a client like I'm their partner. Even if it's a prospective client, I will not sell to them anything which, or propose to them anything which is, मुझे पैसे बन जाएंगे, but उनका फायदा नहीं होगा, because what will happen is that after 6 months they will be bad mouthing me. I would rather have, I would rather not have them as a client, but as a friend who think of me as an advisor who gave them good advice. So there have been places where I have walked away saying, you don't need me. You possibly need a sales trainer, or you possibly need a coach for this person, or you need an XYZ, or go back to the drawing board. First, you as the leadership decide what is the outcome you want. So I remember in 2000, this was just after COVID had ended. I think in 22, I was speaking to a client based out of Bangalore. And I got a brief from HR. Then I got a brief from the delivery head. And then their CEO came. So we had already made 2 iterations of the proposal. And then when the CEO came, he spoke about something completely different. And I'm like, listen, you'll make me stand in front of a room full of people. You'll make me do something and it will fall flat. Why don't the three of you go back? Make up your mind on what you want. And then you come back to us, and then we'll see whether it works or whether we have something for you or not. So it took them 2 months. And then when they came back, we took another month to think through and design.
No,
And then
Sonica, the situation hasn't changed today. So, what I have experienced, like I am somebody who has 3 years of experience in working, but I have 6 jobs, right? So every 6 months, I've seen a different boss, and I've seen a different dynamic. And one thing that the industry is like, at least the media industry is very adamant on, is like all agree is that there is a lot of politics. Like, I think where you were coming from, that point is just 3 people trying to like sabotage the other one person trying to overtake the other one, and designations and talent and own egos and everything. That's a very problematic point. But here I want to bring the discussion to diversity and inclusion, diversity, equity and inclusion, because one is the class that we're born in, one is our gender, then one is our ethnicity. Okay, India today is the powerhouse of the world in a way. All of the important functions are coming from the country. But what about the fact that somebody from Africa wants to grow, or some Indian company in Africa wants to grow, or some Indian company in America wants to grow? That's like,
I lose you, Gauri.
can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Even I can't see you, which is now I can see you. I'm so sorry if there was some internet disconnection. So my question here is that now we are multicultural. We're going to different countries, be it in America or in Africa, and startups like Paytm and Cookies and Pristine Care, for that matter, they're all going to the West. Now, one trend in startups is that entrepreneurs are young. They're the young bosses, maybe with this Arthur of Meesho or like a Vijay Shekhar Sharma of Paytm, and they are very rigorous. And like there have been reports. I don't want to pinpoint a certain company, but there have been reports of the employees being laid off, the employees not being prioritized, and still there is a very small focus on how important your employee is, because there's a notion that they're replaceable. People think companies are replaceable, the great resignation. People think people are replaceable, employees are replaceable, which makes the great attrition and the great layoffs. And like there's a lot of tech happening, and HRMS has gone down after COVID. So here I think your role as the human consultant comes in more. So, I mean, in this whole spectrum, which is a little chaotic, I want you to bring clarity and peace to almost every boss out there, not just like a CEO, but every boss out there. Like, suppose even I can be a boss if I have a video editor who's a freelancer. And we have the gig economy, we have the freelance economy. Things have changed so much in HR. We're all both short of time, otherwise, it would have been a very long discussion. And I want you to just kind of throw light on this fact that how can HR in this very chaotic world bring sanity to a company?
I'll break this into three because, like you said, it's a huge topic, but we are short on time. So the first thing that we need to remember is that we might have the best product. I might have the best solutions. We might have the best automation. We might have the best machines in my factory. But who sells them? Who runs them? Who makes them? It is people. Okay. Products get obsolete because people's preferences keep on changing. The moment you put a machine in a factory, it starts depreciating. Technology is changing so fast that you put something today, by 6 months later, it will no longer be relevant. But you need a person to be able to make sense of that and say that now we need to upgrade, right? So we need to understand at whatever level I am, whether I'm a first time manager at the lowest level or I am a CEO, that it is our people who are our only appreciable asset. The longer an employee stays with me, the longer that person is gaining knowledge, the longer that person is gaining experience, building a network with the customers, clients, vendors. And for me, that is most valuable. And that runs across industries. Okay, it is not only because I'm in consulting, it is across industries. A person's value cannot be measured like you can measure for anything else. So that is number one. The second thing is that a person, an employee, experiences an organization through their manager. The HR team might say that, oh, we have best in class policies, we have best in class processes, right? We have work from home, work from anywhere, we have sleeping pods, we have this, we have that. But if the manager says, if my manager comes and says, Sonica, I want you in this desk from morning 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. and I want you to come on Saturday, because if you are not in front of my eyes, I don't know, you might be cooking, you might be going and buying grocery, you might be you might be looking at your child who is doing online classes. So I want you here, which means as an employee, I'm not getting the benefit of those world in class, best in class policies or processes. So building that capability in managers on how to get the best out of people is today's biggest requirement. How to build psychological safety, empathy, transparency, curiosity, allyship. These are things which many organizations are today not investing in because most of their budgeting is going towards technology. I'm not saying technology is not important, but I think there needs to be a balance. The third point that I will make is that your employees come from the society, and the society is very diverse. And by diverse, I just don't mean men, women, or gender or sexual orientation. I mean cognitive diversity, way of thinking. Think about life stages, right? And life stages are not linked to generation, right? Even at 40, I might be single. And even at 25 or 26, I might be having a child, married and having a child. Somebody might be a single parent. Somebody might be a sandwich generation, taking care of growing children as well as elderly parents, right? So life stage diversity is there, cognitive diversity is there, sexual orientation is there, gender diversity is there. You spoke about racial and ethnic diversity. You know, if you look at the West, there was this entire Black Lives Matter movement, but that is only for US, UK, and a couple of countries where, you know, white people dominate. Look at Asia. People from Singapore are different from people from Malaysia, are different from people from Indonesia, are different from people from Japan, are different from people from China. And within each, there are multiple ethnicities. People in Dubai, 90% are expats. At India, every 200 meters, your dialect changes, your traditions change. So I think, how do we leverage this diversity to unleash creativity, innovation? I think that is something which organizations need to understand. Today, for example, you know, I have grown up eating a lot of junk food. I would come back from school at 4 o'clock. My mom would be in the clinic, and I would just pick up something and eat. Today, there is this entire realization that junk food is not acceptable. So, what are the healthy things that children can have? And stocking up on it. And a lot of people are doing it. How do you understand that? What are the different taste preferences of different cultures within India? If you don't have that representation within the organization, how will you be able to cater to it? What is the young generation thinking? How do we consume information? When you make your advertisements, what is going to click with who? So I think across, it is extremely critical to be able to understand. I have an 11-year-old daughter, 16-year-old son, and a niece who's 4 years old, right? Now, across all of these, if I have to look at, oh, how do I stock up my kitchen? How do I stock up? My husband and I go bonkers. So, you know, so
Generation Alpha, Generation Z, then there are Zillennials. I mean, one question that always hits my head is, what about this Generation Z? Because that's like changing workplace dynamics, answering their bosses back, and I mean, asking for more, and sometimes being careless also when it comes to the West. I mean, it's a very diverse audience.
you know, I think it is good in a way that they know what they want. So, my daughter says I'm Gen Alpha. I'm on the cusp of
Yes, yes.
Z and Alpha. So don't club me with Generation Z. Okay, so I will tell you what I want, and I'm like, all right, dude. Okay, so but they know what they want. The only thing that need to be coached on how to articulate it. There is nothing wrong in being able to say that, listen, this is how I want my career to progress. I think we were way too shy or scared to articulate it, or at least I was. But I think today, when I see, I have two people, one 21-year-old and one 25-year-old. And there are times when my 21-year-old team member says, okay, listen, I'm going to tell you something. Shanti se sunna, react mat karna. I was like, okay. Okay. And then the 25-year-old is like, okay, I have this idea. I am not sure, Sonica, you might not like it because it is technology. And I'm like, listen, now that you've been here for a year, I'm now getting used to technology. So they are in your face, but they want to make a difference. They're very clear about how they learn, how they communicate, the kind of work, and it makes my life easier because there is nothing hidden, there is no hidden agenda. I am not reading between the lines.
Yeah, that is, I think, the beautiful thing about this generation. So, I'll share this anecdote with you. So, I have like somebody who's working in my team for almost like 1.5 years, and somebody who's working for 2 years. And now I have come with all of my experience, and I am somebody who's very fidgety, who wants something a lot in a short time. So I get very impatient, and I'm like, okay, I can do this, I can do that. And I keep speaking when I have to speak to my bosses, and they have to be very patient with me. They have to be my teachers in a way. And there are scuffles, and there are times when I actually voice out my opinion, and that is something my department is not used to. So these two instructors, they're my same age. We're all 25, but they're like, okay, we need to learn from you. But I think that that difference comes from maybe number one, knowing what you want, number two, having experienced so much that you are not scared anymore of losing your job, and number three, probably it's different for different people. Like some people are introverted. So today my co-instructor, she took a help in drafting a mail, and it was branded as chat gpt, and I was like, okay, I'm branded chat gpt, I'm liking this. So that's a lot of things that the whole field is now changing in. But like on a closing note, I want to understand from you that, okay, we have the new generation coming in, and we have like the senior consultants and the seniors who are at their jobs. We have juniors and like young people also becoming CEOs today. Like there's the news of the Bangalore intern leaving a company saying कि मैंने तो अपने startup के लिए funding उठा ली है. So that's the kind of a diverse world that we're living in. So here, diversity and inclusion is not just about maybe a woman being safe in the workspace, maybe an LGBTQIA plus getting representation, maybe a mother or a father or a pet parent getting the rights that they want, maybe a work from home or a work from office arrangement. But it's more like every different mind being satisfied in the workplace. But like one question always bothers me is that there are two types of people. One who just gets the job done and leaves for home. Other who is so invested in work that they eat, sleep, and breathe this job. So I mean, obviously balance is the key, but as somebody who's seen this field for these all these years, I want to understand your perspective that what is the ideal way for an employee. Here you told about the managers, but I want to understand how an ideal employee should be.
So, see, as an employee, a valued employee, or an employee who would be valued, I always say that knowledge. I don't know if you would have. I'm sure you would have knowledge, skills, and attitude. Hire for knowledge, skills, and attitude. I have added a new letter here. C, capacity, right? So I might have the knowledge, I might have the skills, I might have the attitude, the intent, everything. But when the time comes, when my organization or my team needs me, if I am not able to deliver, I get emotionally stressed, or I get a sense of privilege saying, "Ki, Arey, I have worked 9 to 5, अब मैं stretch क्यों करूं?" Then that person is not going to be a valued employee. Having said that, we need to understand as an employee that when to draw a line and say that this is not priority, it can be done tomorrow. But also to draw a line saying, oh, this is priority. If this is not done right now, it will have a short term or a long term impact on business. And that impact can be monetary, it can be reputational, it can be legal, right? So that understanding is very important. So I would say that the ability to understand this, when to draw a line and when not. Unfortunately, a lot of people see good policies as a privilege. वर्क फ्रॉम होम है ना, तुम क्यों बुला रहे हो ऑफिस? अगर जरूरत है तो बुला रहे हैं ना ऑफिस, right? Or you need to evaluate and assess that why. I mean, if one day we have to meet up and we have to brainstorm and find a solution to something, then it is important to go to office. So I think somewhere this privileged mindset needs to be broken. Employees need to understand that while policies and processes are there to enable them, to give them a good life, more control over their personal life, at the same time, they also need to evaluate how they can be of value to the organization. And I think, Gauri, I've lost you.
So sorry for the hindrance again, but yes, I mean, you were talking about how it's very important for the employee to draw a line when it's priority, when it's like something very critical. Also, one thing that I've seen is that sometimes in a service company, employees are leaving, and then there is double burden, like 12-hour shifts on a stretch, 14-hour shifts on a stretch on employees. And today only an entrepreneur put up a picture of them like them in the hospital because of a burnout, because of the hustle culture. So I mean, obviously we know that we cannot just kind of do our 8 hours and leave when we are needed. But at the same time, there are people who are just so control freaks in jobs that they cannot let go, and then they end up kind of shortening their own life and jeopardizing their families. So here is where I want to understand, like, how can a company and how can an HR officer and how can an employee, like, all balance out the smooth functioning of this wheel?
So I will again here go back to what I had said earlier. HR is the custodian of the right policies and processes. Managers need to make sure that they make these right policies and processes get implemented in letter and spirit so that employees can experience it. And so, for example, if we have working hours, we have from home, we have mental health days, we have EAPs. I think this needs to be popularized, communicated, and employees need to be encouraged. Now, attrition happens. And during that time, in fact, in my team, we have a small team. We have 9 people. Now, one of my team members took a sabbatical. Now, during that time, and I knew that he would be coming back. Now, during that time, some of his work got split across 3 or 4 other team members, including myself. It did increase our work pressure. But then we were constantly in touch with each other, saying that, listen, if you are feeling overwhelmed, pass it on to somebody else, right? We'll manage. So, keeping those communication channels is extremely critical. And that is why what you said, that an employee can speak up without the fear of losing their job. I should not feel scared that I go up to Gauri and say that I'm feeling overwhelmed, and Gauri sees it as a weakness, right? Everybody has good days and bad days. I might be feeling overwhelmed today, but I might come back all charged tomorrow because I've rested today. So I think these are things which managerial capability needs to be built. Are we investing enough in that?
No, but also there is a very pertinent issue of moonlighting, from employees. But basically, suppose I hire somebody and they're constantly off radar. Like first month they work very well, but then they're just engaged in a lot of other things. So I mean, how do we kind of streamline our policies? Like obviously, the big five tech companies of India have this very strict policy that we will not moonlight. Maybe some startups have this policy that okay, you can, and obviously the gig workers are supposed to freelance here and there, like an Uber can also drop a Zomato order.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the kind of flexibility there have been stories of IT techies just turning into delivery guys where they can talk to more people, just turning into cabbies or auto drivers to be able to communicate because of the loneliness syndrome that's coming in. But it should not hamper the work, like suppose you have a team,
Absolutely.
you give consultants, and suppose they start consulting for a rival, or they start consulting in another field and not able to give their 100%. So where do the HR policies come in here? And I mean, are they personalized for every company based on the CEO's mindset, or do they follow like a whole systematic approach of the country? Like the budget is somebody, like some place in the country where we can see some corporate guidance. The FM, the commerce minister, they all keep talking about things at a macro level. Then obviously we have the West, the Fed, and everybody also talking about these issues. And we have custodians who we can follow, like the big companies, the FANGs of the world, and then the big companies in India, maybe the Reliance Adanis or the Tatas of the world. So here is where I want to understand that how can a company know that this is the right policy for me? Like some are non-negotiable, like a Porsche is a non-negotiable. But like a moonlighting policy is also very critical these days, and DEI obviously is. So I mean, how do you kind of start consulting? Because there is a sensitization that I feel is needed at every level, like employee.
Again, losing you. You're on mute, Gauri.
I'm so sorry. I just want to ask that there are all levels who need to be educated in terms of HR policies. So, I mean, are there kind of courses that you offer, trainings that you offer at all levels? Or is it more about the leadership, the top to bottom approach? So, how do you approach this?
First of all, you spoke about POSH. Okay, POSH is mandatory. You think POSH is implemented very well across all companies?
It's not.
You have not heard of the Calcutta case. You've not heard of
Yes,
Karnataka
obviously.
case.
I mean, these have been cases, but like I think I am coming from privilege because wherever I used to work, there always used to be a mandate to finish the course training, and then you could kind of complete your whole training process as a young employee who's a trainee. So I mean, yes, obviously there are many companies who don't have a posh policy, but like I don't think that
Let me,
you will be
let
able to
me
sell.
interrupt you here. Having a country level policy does not mean it will be implemented across companies. Until and unless there is a governance around it, which makes it impossible for companies to evade it. We had labor laws, right? And even then, factories were flouting labor laws. So I think when it comes to consulting, we have to look at from company to company, look at what are the issues, what is being implemented, what is not being implemented, and try and drive what is best for the employees. Yes, POSH is mandatory. We try to get in fact, only yesterday I was trying to get one of the clients to implement POSH. And he said, the HR head said, my management will not spend so much money on a POSH training. And I was like, at your own risk, because this is how it is, right? So we need to really understand that what is being driven in the organization depends a lot on the reason, on the leader. If a leader says diversity and equity is not important, what will get percolated down?
Like in Elon Musk, he is a case study of like I don't know. I mean, where to start and where to end. Like there are stringent 18-hour policies. Then he's sleeping around with employees in his office and like rearing kids with them. So I mean, it's a mindset which he's implementing, and at the cost of his own stature. Not just that, but at the cost of other people's lives, and like setting a standard. Like maybe a gullible Indian or an African or an Asian sees him and thinks that okay, this is the way. I will be the next Elon Musk. I will do the same policies in my country, like or in my company. So I mean, I don't know. Is it that we have to educate people at these levels, because like now you've named the RG Car Hospital, you are not hired by them, so you won't be able to help them, but maybe a government committee which has HR heads around this policy and a legal consultation happens, maybe then is when you can help. So would you push for an implementation at the government level?
They have to. Isn't the government, aren't the government offices and organization? Aren't do hospitals have an HR? They do release payroll, right? They have a roster system, they have leaves, they have a shift system, they have an HR function. So how can they not have an IC, an internal committee? How can they not have POSH? How can police not have LC, local committee? And let's talk about at a policy level for a company. Okay, look at the security and safety in our country. If I am going to, as an organization, employ people and they are going to be working in shifts and the shift is going to end at 11 o'clock, as an organization, and I'm the HR of the organization, should I not have a security policy in place which provides transport, which provides guards, which provides cabs? Now, that is where consulting comes in place, right? So we have to, and the government has given POSH, right? Or any other policy for that matter. There is RPWD Act 2016. Now think about factories, think about sales, think about corporate office. We need to look at different places and see how can we help them employ all the 21 disabilities. Each disability requires a different set of accessibility tools or infrastructure, as well as reasonable accommodations. So Every industry, every company is different, every leader is different, every company HR is different. How much money they have, how much is their margin? In one industry, margin will be high, so they might be able to invest more. In one industry, margin might be very low, so their pace might be slower. So we have to consult, knowing that how much is the appetite. Is the company able to run at a pace of 5 kilometers an hour, 7 kilometers an hour, 10 kilometers an hour? And accordingly, we do it. As long as the intent is there, we can make a difference. If the intent is only not there, like the person who spoke to me yesterday saying we cannot spend so much on a, what was the amount? I can't even mention the amount on, over here. I told my team member that, listen, I don't want to waste my time. If this person is not doing it, what is the point? Right? So it is, sometimes it makes me wonder that there is an extent to which we can support, but at a larger level, communication, conversation, governance, which helps people understand that if we don't change this right now, what is the kind of country are we going to leave for our daughters and sons?
Very true, because I believe even men are at risk. I mean, there have been cases of the male bosses or the female bosses asking for favors for in order to promote a
Not
certain
the, it's
woman
not
to the team.
posh, Gauri. It is, it's the risk of burnout. If this patriarchy continues, where it is okay for a woman to take a year off. When I took a year off in 2012, nobody batted an eyelid, right? Nobody asked a question that will you be living off your husband's salary or money? But when my husband spoke about taking a sabbatical, because he'd been working for 20 years and he just wanted to take 1 year off, there were people who said, will you live off your wife's salary or wife's income? Now think that the kind of pressure men have. It is all right, suddenly double income, no kids. Okay, there is a child who comes in and there is societal pressure for the woman to take a back seat, and she quits her job even if she doesn't want to. So from double income, two kids, you become single income and three mouths to feed. What is it doing to the man's mental health? What is it doing to his physical health? How long will he be able to sustain? It is not just a woman's problem, it is everybody's problem. And then, when the child is growing up, if the child is only seeing the mother at home, we are perpetuating this patriarchy. So I think we need to have these conversations. We need to let couples decide on their own. If a man wants to take paternity leave at different stages of a child's upbringing, I think there needs to be this parental leave concept. There will be single parents, there will be parents, same gender parents, same sex parents. There would be,
Thanks, Sonica. Let me just kind of have a very first world view on this. I just adopted a cat on Saturday and I couldn't leave today. I mean, I put in chutti yesterday. I had to take a backache. But today, I was in tears in school because I was just going crazy thinking, what will Amber be doing at home? So, I mean, I know this is a first world issue. We have mouths to feed, we have tasks to do. But, we need to be more and more considerate. And I will kind of take this opportunity to kind of congratulate my first employer who actually had an EAP policy. And it was so well that I never knew that I had anxiety issues and I could actually go into depression. And I had this issue which was genetic, that towards the winters my body doesn't make serotonin, which is like the therapist actually helped me destigmatize this thing, that this is the same thing as your body not being able to make diabetes type insulin. So
Excellent.
this is not that you're crazy or there is something lagging in you. And my manager was so supportive. My senior account executive was so supportive in that journey. So I mean, I really feel that it is a top to bottom approach, and we need more such compassionate leaders. Otherwise, we can have an entrepreneurship or a company just cropping out of every second house. But if that company is going to reach like a Tata level or like a Reliance or a Adani level, there needs to be some kind of threshold, some kind of guidance, that we can look up to these founders, we can look up to these companies to be safe havens. And then, I mean, automatically I think attrition will go low.
It's a lagging indicator. We need to work on the leading indicators.
Oh, absolutely. And I think this is a very, very paramount issue. I mean, this is a discussion which is expanded into horizons of psychology, into society, into law, and into the overall corporate governance issue that we have seen startups face, which used to be such a big trigger for the funding winter, which actually led to layoffs also. Like if the blocks were built fine, the foundation was fine, the mountain or the kind of house that they had built would not have fallen off. It was a house of cards.
Absolutely.
Without a Posh, I think it's a house of cards without a HR guideline in place, which is paramount to their overall wellness. Like so many parameters are now expanding up. As I talked about a paternity leave, like many companies might be having it. Menstrual leave is something that's being looked down upon by many. Like they're saying, "Ki, okay, a fourth chutti for a woman, and what if a man has some issue which they're not able to take chuttis about?" So I mean, there's this whole fight of the genders, the whole fight of the mindsets, the ages, and I think an HR is said ki, matlab, I will use it very colloquial term because I've worked across companies. So one perception that is always stuck by is ki HR to rangoli banwata hai. But now that I've spoken to you, I personally feel that this job is so taxing because making people happy is not an easy task. And I mean, it would have been easier if you were an ice cream seller, but you were an HR, and I think it's very, very hard.
Even this term, making people happy, I think it's not about making people happy. I think it is about enabling people to be their best. And that will automatically make them happy. If we can create an environment which is safe, where they're learning, they're growing, they can speak up, happiness will happen. I think that is the role HR needs to play. And I think that realization really blossomed during COVID, because suddenly overnight, yes, IT had a huge role to play in that entire digitization, where every employee had to be online working from home. But then HR also had a huge role to play. The first wave might not have been very well managed, but at least the second wave was reasonably well managed. And it was the most difficult one. But yeah, I think there is this need for even HR professionals to look at it in that sense. So, yeah.
And
So,
just the last question, because I don't want to let you go, but I just want to ask: are you seeing like a decline or an uprise in people choosing HR as a profession?
HR as a profession. Mm, I don't know about HR as a profession, but definitely consulting as a choice. So I am seeing more and more so people who used to be on the other side of the table, who would at one time be my potential clients. I see them joining, and trying to drive awareness and becoming facilitators, becoming consultants, because I think this space is so wide, so deep, and there is so much work to be done. And sometimes I'm not speaking for them, I'm speaking for myself. The one organizational environment can be very constraining. So I'm seeing a lot of increase in people who are joining to drive diversity, equity, and inclusion and capability at the leadership level.
That's a very interesting take, and I think I want to sum up this discussion here, but I'm going to closely see what Marchingsheep is up to, what kind of changes in clients and big journeys that you've talked about the macro level, but maybe the micro journeys that happen after this discussion will be a very interesting take to see. Not just for me, but for the viewers as well. Thank you so much for tuning into this. Thank you so much, Sonica, for your time today. Keep watching NeUp for such updates and such interviews. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. And thank
Bye.
you, Gauri. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for tuning in.